What's in the box? Se7en wasn't just a serial killer thriller, it was a masterpiece born from chaos, a film that nearly destroyed careers, broke actors emotionally, and changed Hollywood forever through sheer creative stubbornness. Behind those rain-soaked streets and brutal crime scenes lay a production nightmare that almost never happened. Studio executives demanded rewrites. Stars walked off set. The director fought tooth and nail for an ending that would traumatize audiences worldwide. And one of cinema's most shocking reveals almost got buried in Hollywood politics. Today, we're diving deep into 20 weird facts about Se7en that reveal the madness behind the masterpiece. From casting disasters to real-world consequences that still echo today. And stick around for the bonus fact. It involves a secret that changed how one A-list actor chose roles for the rest of his career. Buckle up. This gets dark. David Fincher was nobody's first choice. When New Line Cinema picked up Andrew Kevin Walker's script, Fincher wasn't even on their radar. The studio wanted a veteran director who could handle the dark material safely. They approached Michael Bay, who passed, then Oliver Stone, who found it too disturbing. Even Joel Schumacher was considered before someone remembered the guy who made Alien 3. Fincher was coming off the biggest disaster of his career. Alien 3 had been butchered by studio interference, critics savaged it, and the director publicly disowned the final cut. He was toxic in Hollywood terms, talented but difficult, visionary but unbankable. The kind of filmmaker studios avoid unless they're desperate. But New Line was desperate. They had this brilliant script that nobody wanted to touch, and suddenly Fincher's outsider status became an asset. He understood stories about obsession and the price of perfection. He'd lived it. The rain never stopped because it wasn't supposed to exist. Every exterior shot in Se7en features rain. Not drizzle, not mist, torrential biblical downpours that turn the city into a waterlogged purgatory. What audiences didn't know was that Los Angeles was experiencing a massive drought during filming, forcing Fincher to create every single drop artificially. The production deployed 12 industrial rain machines working around the clock. These weren't gentle sprinklers, they were high-pressure systems that could soak an entire city block in minutes. The water bills alone nearly bankrupted the production 3 times. Local fire departments complained about water pressure drops during filming. But Fincher wasn't creating atmosphere. He was building a character. The rain wasn't weather, it was tears. The city weeping for its lost soul, washing away hope one drop at a time. Every puddle reflected the moral decay eating away at civilization itself. Morgan Freeman nearly quit during casting. Freeman wasn't thrilled about playing Somerset. The original script described the character as a broken-down veteran, detective, burned out and counting days to retirement. Freeman saw it as another stereotypical wise old mentor role and initially passed. He envisioned William Hurt playing the character, but Fincher cast Freeman after the suggestion by Copelson, but the studio had different concerns entirely. What changed Freeman's mind was Fincher's vision of Somerset as an intellectual warrior. Not a beaten-down cop, but a scholar trapped in a war zone. Freeman rewrote his character's backstory extensively, transforming Somerset from passive observer to active philosopher engaged in humanity's oldest battle between civilization and savagery. The depth Freeman brought to Somerset elevated the entire production. His scenes became masterclasses in controlled intensity, showing how truly dangerous men often appear completely calm. Freeman turned what could have been a throwaway mentor role into the moral center of the film. Brad Pitt broke his arm and it made the movie better. During the foot chase sequence, Pitt slipped on wet pavement and shattered his arm in 2 places. Instead of shutting down production, Fincher rewrote the script to incorporate the injury. Mills would now sport a cast throughout the final act, adding an unexpected layer of vulnerability to his character. The accident became a metaphor. Mills starts the film as an invincible young hotshot, but by the end, he's literally and figuratively broken. The cast serves as a visual reminder that this case has damaged him in ways that can't be healed. It's brilliant accidental symbolism that Fincher transformed into intentional character development. Pitt later admitted the injury helped his performance. The constant pain kept him on edge, matching Mills' psychological deterioration. Method acting through actual physical trauma, the kind of commitment that separates good actors from great ones. The cast stayed on for the remainder of filming, becoming an integral part of the character's arc. The head in the box was never actually there. The most shocking reveal in cinema history, Tracy's severed head in the cardboard box, was achieved without showing audiences anything at all. There was no prop head, no special effects, no graphic imagery. Just brilliant directing, masterful editing, and Brad Pitt's devastating performance selling absolute horror through pure reaction. Fincher knew that imagination creates better monsters than any special effect. By keeping the box's contents hidden, he forced audiences to fill in the blanks with their own worst nightmares. Every viewer sees something different in that box, tailored perfectly to their personal fears and revulsions. The decision saved the film. Showing Tracy's actual head would have pushed Se7en into exploitation territory, diminishing its psychological impact. Instead, the unseen horror lingers forever, growing more powerful with each viewing. It's proof that sometimes the most effective horror is the kind you never actually see. Kevin Spacey demanded his name be removed from marketing. Spacey understood that John Doe's impact depended on his anonymity. If audiences knew Kevin Spacey was in the film, they'd spend the entire movie waiting for him to appear, ruining the character's shocking introduction. So Spacey made an unprecedented demand: remove his name from all marketing materials and opening credits. This wasn't ego, it was artistic integrity. Spacey was already an established actor, but he willingly sacrificed billing to preserve the story's impact. His name only appears in the end credits after audiences have experienced John Doe's terrifying philosophy firsthand. The strategy worked perfectly. When Spacey finally appears in the third act, his presence feels genuinely surprising and menacing. He's not playing Kevin Spacey, he's become something far more dangerous, a complete transformation that was only possible through complete anonymity. The gluttony scene used real rotting food. The film's opening murder scene, the obese man forced to eat himself to death, required authentic decay. The production couldn't use fake food because cameras would detect the artificial textures and colors. Instead, they gathered real spaghetti, aged it for weeks under heat lamps, and let nature create the horror. The smell was unbearable. Cast and crew wore masks between takes, but the stench still seeped through. Brad Pitt actually vomited during filming, though Fincher kept the cameras rolling, capturing genuine revulsion that added authenticity to the scene's impact. The rotting food created an olfactory nightmare that enhanced everyone's performances. When actors look disgusted in that scene, they're not acting. They're reacting to genuine sensory assault. Method filmmaking that pushed everyone beyond their comfort zones into authentic horror territory. The library scene was filmed in a real abandoned building. Somerset's research montage takes place in a decaying public library that looks like civilization's graveyard. The location wasn't a set, it was an actual abandoned library in downtown Los Angeles, complete with rotting books, broken windows, and structural damage that made filming genuinely dangerous. The building had been condemned for 5 years, but Fincher wanted authentic decay. Production crews worked around collapsing ceilings and unstable floors, creating a workspace that perfectly matched the film's themes of societal breakdown. The library became a character itself, knowledge abandoned, wisdom ignored, culture crumbling. Freeman's performance in this location carries extra weight because he's literally surrounded by discarded learning. Books represent everything Somerset values: wisdom, understanding, hope for human improvement, now rotting in neglected ruins. The setting amplifies his character's intellectual isolation and moral desperation. The title sequence was created after principal photography. The now iconic opening credits, featuring John Doe's meticulous preparation ritual, were filmed months after the main production wrapped. Fincher realized the film needed an overture that would prepare audiences for the psychological journey ahead without giving away plot details. The sequence shows anonymous hands performing mysterious tasks, cutting newspaper clippings, filing fingertips, sewing notebooks. It's methodical, obsessive, deeply unsettling. Audiences don't know what they're watching, but they understand they're seeing pure evil preparing for something terrible. 9-inch nails provided the industrial soundtrack, creating auditory chaos that perfectly matched the visual disturbia. The credit sequence became a horror short film in its own right, establishing tone and atmosphere more effectively than any exposition could achieve. It's psychological conditioning disguised as opening credits. Go ahead and like and subscribe because this gets even darker. The production of Se7en was plagued by studio interference, actor conflicts, and creative battles that nearly destroyed the film before audiences ever saw it. But these behind-the-scenes struggles created a masterpiece that changed Hollywood forever. The remaining facts reveal secrets that even hardcore fans don't know, including the real reason the ending almost got completely rewritten. The film almost had a completely different ending. New Line Cinema hated Walker's original ending. Studio executives couldn't understand why audiences would want to watch Mills shoot John Doe. They demanded rewrites showing Mills arrests the killer, bringing him to justice through proper legal channels. They wanted Hollywood justice, not brutal reality. Fincher threatened to walk away from the project entirely. He'd already been burned by studio interference on Alien 3 and refused to compromise his vision again. The ending wasn't just plot mechanics, it was the film's entire philosophical statement about justice, revenge, and the cost of moral certainty. The final version represents complete artistic victory over commercial concerns. Mills shoots John Doe because that's what would realistically happen in that situation. Not Hollywood justice, but human justice. Raw, imperfect, and devastatingly real. Gwyneth Paltrow was terrorized by her own scenes. Paltrow's limited screen time carries enormous emotional weight, but filming her scenes was psychologically brutal. Fincher demanded multiple takes of every emotional moment, pushing her to genuine breaking points. Her tears weren't acting. They were real reactions to relentless directorial pressure. The dinner scene where Tracy reveals her pregnancy fears was filmed over 6 hours. Fincher made Paltrow repeat her monologue dozens of times, each take requiring her to access deep emotional vulnerability. By the end, she was emotionally exhausted, which created the haunting performance that makes her death so impactful. Paltrow later admitted the experience changed how she chose roles. She realized that some characters demand pieces of your soul, and actors must decide whether they're willing to pay that price. Tracy Mills cost her emotional well-being, but delivered one of her most powerful performances. The sloth victim was actually suffering. The sloth murder scene features a man so emaciated and still that everyone assumes he's dead until he suddenly gasps, revealing he's been alive the entire year. The effect was achieved through practical makeup and performance, but actor Michael Reed McKay endured genuine physical torment to create the illusion. McKay lost 30 pounds for the role, spending hours in makeup that made breathing difficult and movement painful. He lay motionless for entire shooting days, developing genuine muscle cramps and circulation problems. His sudden breath, the film's most shocking jump scare, was partially real reaction to his physical distress. The performance required method acting taken to dangerous extremes. McKay literally suffered for his art, creating a horror effect that no special effect could match. His commitment to the role created one of cinema's most disturbing moments through authentic human endurance. The film's color palette was chemically altered. Se7en's distinctive visual style came from revolutionary color processing techniques that had never been used before. Fincher worked with cinematographer Darius Khondji to develop a process called bleach bypass, which retained silver in the film stock, creating unique color saturation and contrast. The technique made colors appear simultaneously vivid and drained, creating an otherworldly appearance that enhanced the film's psychological atmosphere. Skin tones became sickly, environments looked toxic, and even daylight scenes carried an aura of corruption. The entire film exists in a visual purgatory between life and death. This wasn't just aesthetic choice, it was storytelling technique. The altered colors make audiences feel uncomfortable without understanding why, creating subconscious unease that enhances every scene's psychological impact. The film literally looks wrong, matching its morally inverted universe. John Doe's notebooks were handwritten by a real serial killer expert. The production consulted FBI behavioral analysts to create authentic serial killer methodology. John Doe's meticulous notebooks weren't random scribblings. They were based on actual case studies of organized killers, written by experts who had studied real murderers for decades. Every page contained authentic psychological detail, religious justifications, methodological planning, philosophical rationalizations that actual killers used to justify their actions. The notebooks became character studies in pure evil, showing how intelligent people can rationalize absolutely anything through careful intellectual manipulation. The authenticity was crucial for Spacey's performance. He studied those notebooks like an actor studying Shakespeare, understanding John Doe's intellectual framework before portraying his twisted charisma. The result was a villain who feels genuinely dangerous because his logic follows real patterns of criminal thinking. Morgan Freeman's Somerset was almost killed. Early script drafts featured Somerset's death in the final confrontation, leaving Mills alone to face John Doe's ultimate revelation. Freeman's character would have been eliminated precisely when his wisdom was most needed, amplifying the ending's nihilistic impact through the loss of moral guidance. Fincher ultimately decided Somerset needed to survive as witness and Greek chorus to Mills's tragedy. Someone had to live with the knowledge of what happened, carrying the burden of understanding how evil operates and good men fall. Somerset becomes the audience surrogate, horrified observer of humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. The decision transformed Somerset from victim to survivor, giving him a different kind of tragic arc. He doesn't die physically, but he dies spiritually, losing his faith in human improvability while being forced to continue living in a world he no longer believes can be saved. The film inspired real copycat crimes. Se7en's release triggered a disturbing phenomenon: copycat crimes inspired by John Doe's methodology. Several real murders incorporated 7 deadly sins themes, with killers explicitly referencing the film as inspiration. Law enforcement agencies began tracking 7 copycats as a distinct category of imitative violence. The most troubling aspect was how accurately Fincher had predicted this response. John Doe's philosophy was designed to be seductive to certain personality types, intelligent, alienated individuals who felt society had failed them. The film's intellectual approach to murder attracted exactly the kind of person who might translate fiction into reality. This created ethical questions about artistic responsibility. Did Se7en glorify violence by making it intellectually appealing, or did it expose uncomfortable truths about how easily civilization can collapse when intelligent people choose evil? The debate continues among criminologists and film scholars. The box scene changed how Hollywood makes thrillers. Se7en's ending violated every Hollywood convention about hero victories and justice triumphing. Mills doesn't save the day. He becomes complicit in evil through his own moral certainty. The villain wins by turning the hero into another killer, achieving victory through psychological manipulation rather than physical force. This breakthrough influenced an entire generation of thriller filmmakers. The Se7en ending became a template for psychological horror that prioritizes character destruction over plot resolution. Films like Zodiac, Gone Girl, and countless others follow Se7en's model of making audiences complicit in moral complexity. The impact extended beyond cinema into television, literature, and even video games. Se7en proved that audiences would embrace stories without clear moral resolution, opening creative possibilities that continue expanding today. It changed what popular entertainment could be and do. David Fincher never watched the final cut until 20 years later. Fincher was so emotionally exhausted by the production battles that he couldn't bear to watch the finished film. He attended the premiere but walked out before the final act, unable to relive the creative trauma that had consumed 2 years of his life. He knew what he'd made but couldn't face seeing it complete. 20 years later, during Se7en's anniversary restoration, Fincher finally watched his masterpiece from beginning to end. His reaction was profound relief. Relief that the film had survived studio interference, relief that audiences understood his vision, relief that the suffering had created something meaningful. The viewing convinced him that Se7en represented his purest artistic statement, uncompromising, unflinching, unforgiving in its examination of human nature. It was the film that established his reputation as cinema's premier psychological interrogator, the director willing to ask questions others avoid. During filming, Spacey remained in character as John Doe between takes, refusing to break the psychological framework he'd constructed for the killer. He studied real serial killer case files, adopted their speech patterns, and began exhibiting disturbing behavioral changes that worried cast and crew members. Morgan Freeman later revealed that Spacey's method work became genuinely unsettling. He would appear at craft services in character, discussing philosophy and morality with John Doe's twisted logic. Freeman avoided him entirely during the final weeks of production, unable to separate the actor from the monster he was portraying. The immersion was so complete that Spacey needed months of therapy after filming, wrapped to separate his own personality from John Doe's psychological framework. He'd gone so deep into the character's mindset that returning to normal social interaction became genuinely difficult. It was method acting taken to dangerous psychological extremes.